All right, a pleasant good evening to everyone here. We would just first and foremost like to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy Sunday schedules to come to the St. Lucian Town Hall meeting. I am going to be one of your hosts for the evening, and my name is Tala Albert. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we want to once again thank you for this town hall for St. Lucia, featuring the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, who was the chosen leader of the opposition in 2016. But before we begin tonight's proceedings, we invite you to listen. Listen to our one-on-one interview with myself and the Honorable Philip J. Pierre. The purpose of this interview is to acquaint us further with Mr. Pierre as he reflects on his 30 years in public service. I hope you find this interview very informative. Okay? So are you guys ready? All right. So I would now like to bring to the table, without further ado, the Honorable, and please put your hands together for the Honorable Philip J. Pierre. Hello. All right. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, I'm fine.
You're fine. Okay. So we're just going to jump right into this. I'm so excited to talk to you this evening. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Must I say it in patois or English?
We could do both. We could definitely do
Good afternoon. Jean Saint-Ici. Bonjour.
All right. So yeah, we would like to know some more about who you are. So please.
Well, basically, I am St. Lucian. Born and bred in St. Lucia. I went to school in St. Lucia. Then I attended school in Barbados, actually the University of the West Indies. I have a bachelor's and master's degree.
In?
I've forgotten. My first degree is econ, and I have an MBA.
Oh, wow.
But that was a long time ago, so
No pressure.
and I did all things normal St. Lucians do. I was an acolyte, I was a cadet, I played some games, I did everything. I was troublesome, wow. I did everything St. Lucians did. Yeah.
Okay, so you're a well-rounded individual. All right, so first, tell us, why did you choose the life of politics? Why did you choose to enter politics?
Sometimes I ask myself, why? You see, basically, I come from a family of service. My mother was a school teacher. She taught for probably about 45 years. And my dad was a cop. And he was there for, I think, more than 45, 50 years also. So I was brought up with my parents doing things in the community. My parents were staunch Catholics. So they were in the Teaching of Mary, they were in the Sacred Heart Confraternity, St. Vincent de Paul, all things Catholic, all things service.
Right.
So I was brought up in that service mode, and I felt politics was a natural transgression. So I just came from a family of service,
right.
and I went into serving people.
Right.
And I thought the best way I could do it was to be a member of a party that dealt with people. And that is what I find very, very deep in our party. It's about people. It's a philosophy that deals with making people better, improving the quality of life for people. And that's why I'm in politics.
Okay. So since you chose to be in politics, there must have been someone who influenced you. There must have been someone you were seeing or hearing about in politics at the time, and that made you seal the deal in your mind that said, you know what, I want to choose a life of service in the political arena. So tell me, who is that person for you?
Well, I tell you something. Many figures, both local and international.
Right.
Locally, it's got to be George Charles. George Charles, I believe, is a St. Lucian hero.
Yes.
In fact, I think George Charles has not been recognized how he ought to be. I think George Charles embodied what a politician should be like.
Explain that.
It is said that George Charles was stupid because he left politics poor. And many people say that. And say, why? Why did he leave politics poor? Because George Charles was in politics to serve. So I think George Charles was probably my local hero.
Right.
And I come from a generation of Malcolm X and that kind of philosophy. So I think that awareness came from these people. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, locally, there was Geddes Granger, Walter Rodney. That's my generation. So that was a generation of consciousness.
Right.
And I think young people have not been taught the contribution that people like George have done, Christopher St. Lucia, people like Walter Rodney in the regional context, people like Geddes Granger, these people. I don't think we know enough about that history. So that was my came from.
Right, and those are people who actually not only talk the talk, but they walk
They
the
walk,
walk.
and they made the necessary sacrifices
Right.
that politics you should
Right.
make. But right now, I think many people see politics as a means of getting rich and making money, etc. I don't think it's people like
Right,
that.
and those are people who went into the field. So are you that kind of guy who could go into the field, like you're not afraid to go and do the groundwork?
But I'll tell you something. I live in my constituency. Eh?
Wow.
I've lived there all my life. I haven't moved. I've stayed there. So I'm in touch with people all the time. I live with them. I live amongst them. And I will not leave. I'm too old to leave. I can't afford to leave.
Okay, so moving along to our next question. All right, so you've worked in the government, right, as a minister, and in various capacities, as we know. How would you describe your tenure, and which ministry would you say was your most challenging?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Kenny Anthony for allowing me to serve in his cabinet for 3 terms, right? I want to thank him for that. In fact, in the final term, I was his deputy.
Right.
So I'm really grateful for that chance and for that opportunity to work with him. I think the most challenging ministry for me was the Ministry of Tourism.
Tell me why.
I'll tell you why. Because in tourism, we had to change the mindset. We had to create a philosophical position as far as tourism was concerned. We had to make a transition from tourism benefiting a few people to tourism benefiting more people. I'll tell you a simple example. In the matter of incentives were only given to hotels, big hotels, etc. But when we came into government, we gave incentives to taxi drivers. That was a fundamental change where regular people got involved in industry. We did something which we call the Rangers program and the hostesses and a program where you had young ladies trained as hostesses and they showed tourists around the country. And we had that in Castries and Soufrière, getting people involved. We upgraded the vendors. We got the vendors more involved in the industry. So I think we had to make that transition from tourism being an elitist thing to tourism benefiting everybody.
On a local basis. That's amazing.
I think that was our main challenge. We had something called a program where we developed sites in rural areas. I don't know if you remember the Ansari, every Friday something Ansari, that came under us, getting tourism to people. I think that was significant for us.
Okay, so, and what would you say was your favorite ministry to work in?
I think the Ministry of Infrastructure.
Tell me why.
I built 21 bridges.
Okay. As you said, you served as deputy under Kenny Anthony, right? So tell us, what was that experience like for you, and what do you admire most about him?
Um, one of my most significant, significant experiences was dealing with American Airlines. That was significant. Yeah. Because we had to deal with a multinational, a big company, a big firm
Right.
that they took no prisoners.
At all.
And we had to go in and negotiate that. You have to go in and listen to me. We are a small country, so you must understand we are a small country. And these negotiations were brutal, but we, we survived, right? And when I noticed what happened to Virgin, I see a big difference because we actually spoke to them, and then we ensured that the flights remain as compared to Virgin. So I think that it was telling. Because you see, when you deal with these big companies, you really you come to the table only with nothing.
Very true.
But you have to show spirit, you have to show confidence,
Right.
and you have to show commitment. I think that's what happened to back then.
Right. So is that something you admire?
But I think Kenny Anthony is he is a guy who believes a lot in the law, in the Constitution, and ensuring that things are done according to the law, the legal things, right? And many times, Kenny used to say, listen to me, I ain't doing that because I'm going to be breaking the law.
Wow.
And you don't find politicians being like that.
There's a lot of things you're there for.
That's it.
Right.
And Kenny always said, listen to me, I've never seen a guy who says, it's a citizen's right to take the government to court. He said so. He always says so. And when you compare it with what's happening now, where you have governments that believe a government that believe they can do anything, I mean, when I remember when we were speaking about the transition from Victoria Hospital to the new hospital, the OKEU hospital, and in that cabinet, Kenny was the leader in saying, listen to me, you have to protect the rights of these nurses and these people who work at Victoria Hospital. You have to protect their rights. They must get their jobs back when there is that transition. And that was important.
It's very admirable.
I also remember when we spoke about workers' rights, the labor code. He said, listen to me, workers have to have a certain level of protection, and workers have to have a certain level of not being able to be taken for a ride by the employers. Understand? And it's this legal thing in Kenya that I respect about.
Nice. So tell me, how would you describe your tenure as leader of the opposition? Okay. And yeah.
But I'll tell you something. Being leader of the opposition, I want to thank my peers because my peers have to give me everything. And it is actually a constitutional post, right? It's a post that's in the Constitution of St. Lucia. It's a post, right? I don't think that the government takes it gives much credence to it. I'll give an example. The Constitution says that the Prime Minister must consult the leader of the opposition in the appointment of the Public Service Commission. It said it must consult. The Prime Minister writes me on Friday and tells me he will appoint these people on Monday.
Wow.
No consultation.
No
I think the Prime Minister appointed a Governor General, and I heard it on the radio. Absolutely not. No, the Constitution doesn't say that he must consult me when it comes to that. But in terms of just basic manners,
Right.
protocol, if you're appointing somebody in such a high position, you should tell me the official. He never called me. I heard it on the radio like anybody else. I mean, meet, they call meetings of parliament. I just hear it like anybody else. The budget like anybody else. In terms of, like, there are some things that you should consult with the opposition. He tells me, just writes me. In fact, I write him and he doesn't even reply. So it is not the best thing. And I can assure you, our party will not condone that when they become leader of the opposition.
So let's get to the nitty-gritty. Why should St. Lucians vote for you as the leader of the party?
That's a good question. First of all, St. Lucians vote for me as the leader of the party. I am a solution. I understand St. Lucia. I'm of St. Lucia. I know how the people of St. Lucia, how some of them suffer. I understand what it is for a single mother not to be able to send her children to school. I understand people going to school without proper meals. I understand that. I know what it is for a single mother to have to work 2 jobs to send her children to school. I also know the joy and the happiness that comes in the hearts of single mothers when their parents do well. I also know in St. Lucia that we have quite a bit of talent. There are talented young people who just want an opportunity. They want an opportunity to excel, to excel. They want an opportunity to practice their skills. I have seen Darren Sami from where he came to where he is now. I know there is that zeal and there is that commitment if you only give them the necessary opportunity.
Right.
And as Prime Minister, I want to create that opportunity, I want to create that environment for St. Lucia to do better based on their ability and based on the fact they have a zeal and a desire to improve the country.
That's wonderful. So here's the big question. What makes you very different from the current Prime Minister?
You really want me to answer that?
I do. You guys don't want him to answer? Come on. We need to know. Yes, I know, but I want to hear it in
First
your
of
own
all,
words.
First of all, very simple, very simple, very
We
simple,
wanna
very
know.
simple, very simple. I like St. Lucia. You see, I think that the current Prime Minister doesn't understand St. Lucia. I don't think he understands the St. Lucian psyche. I don't think he understands what makes St. Lucia click. I don't think he understands that. You see, because he was not, he was actually a parachute. Because I think he got involved in politics in the year 2016. Literally, 2016. Oh, no, I mean directly. But he was there in 2011 as a senator, right? So he doesn't understand, I mean, the current Prime Minister doesn't even understand the language of St. Lucians. So I think that I'll be different in that I understand St. Lucia, I understand St. Lucians, and most of all, I do not think that people should be used for a particular motive. I think I'll be more inclusive. I think I'll respect people. I think I will talk to people. I think I'll dialogue with people. And most of all, I will put people at the front of all my decisions.
So your party is gearing up for the elections, right? But to date, there are only 7 confirmed out of the possible 17 seats. What's the holdup?
Well, I'm very excited about that. In some seats, we have about 6 candidates,
Oh, wow.
6 prospective candidates, some seats. There are a number of people, a number of young people, a number of people, a number of young people, a number of people who have a track record of service who want to join our party. But there is a process, and as leader of the party, I'm ensuring that the process happens. So we tell all our candidates, stick to the process. Like we have a very exciting candidate in one seat, in Ansteric Canneries. We have a new candidate there, very exciting candidate. So, and that process happened. That process will continue to happen. But I want, by March next year, to have my full seat of candidates.
Perfect, thank you. So based on personal observation, I sense that the people in general, they're really tired of the rhetoric. They're very tired of it from both political parties. Do you think it is effective to win a campaign without mud?
Well, I think you can. But you see, we are a society that we always want to look at a glass half full, half empty instead of half full. I look at the glass half full. I believe in solutions. I think solutions will understand bluff and fluff from reality and truth.
Right.
And I believe in the final analysis, our message is a message of truth. Our message is a message of reality. Our message is a message of commitment for the well-being of St. Lucia. And I have confidence in St. Lucians, and I believe when they hear our message, we'll be victorious in the next general elections.
Nice. So, so it is said that money wins elections, right? And it is said that the ruling party right now has amassed quite a lot of money. How would you counteract that? How would you counter that? And do you think you could only win only on issues?
We can. We can. You see, we will fight money with spirit. We'll fight money with honesty, and we'll fight money with commitment.
So, the next election, let's just say you won. What would make what would make your
Inclusion. I'll tell you what. You can't have a country where after every election, 40% of the people are ostracized. You can't. And this government practices, there's almost a kind of cleansing that takes place, a cleansing, a level of vindictiveness that's unheard of. Never before in the history of St. Lucia has there been a government that is so vindictive. A government that actually targets its opponents. At all levels, I will not have a country like that. I will never have a country where people who are not of the same political persuasion as me are treated as outcasts.
taken? And my final question for you. How do you think it would be necessary, or how can we, as the diaspora, how can we help in the next upcoming elections? And how do you feel that it is necessary for us to be a part of this?
Well, you are a very important cog in that wheel. First of all, I'd like if you come home to vote. But secondly, I would like you to talk to your people at home. Tell them that they must join that movement. Tell them there is need for change. Tell them that you want a St. Lucia that you want to be able to come back to live in. Right? Tell them it's not talk and bluff and all these fanciful things. Tell them what you need is a St. Lucia where everyone feels that they have an opportunity to make a contribution to live and work in the country. And right now, there's a great feeling of alienation. St. Lucians do not feel that they are part of the country. When you have one man being given 1,000 acres of land, one man, 1,000 acres of land, being leased to one guy for 99 years, what happens to the children of people who live in the United States?
Very true.
So I wanted to tell them that I ensure that St. Lucia remains for them,
Right.
and St. Lucia is a place where they can come back and feel welcome.
Right. Well, I would like to thank you for this interview ahead of time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You guys had a good time?
Let us thank Tala Albert for this very insightful interview. Let's hear it for her. The interview that gave us some insight into Mr. Pierre's personality, as just basic personality, as well as the things that he has to offer us. And I'm very excited. I'm not totally political, but being here, standing here, I am excited about this candidate because it seems like something progressive is on the horizon. So let's hear it for this insightful interview. Again, I bid you a pleasant welcome to this town hall for St. Lucia. My name is Martha Sharon Fraser, and I will be serving as your moderator for this evening's proceedings. And without further ado, I invite Mr. Bernard Haynes, who will do our opening prayer.
Let us all stand. Good evening, everybody. Our Father and our God, our great Creator. Mighty God, first of all, we want to give you thanks for our leader who's here with us. God, you gave him traveling mercies, oh God. God is other one who's here with him, and Moses Jabatis. Father, we want to say thank you for bringing him here to the land of the USA, safe and sound, God. You gave them journeying mercies, oh God. You are here with them. You protected them. God, I want to thank you for those who have made it here this afternoon, God. God, I pray in the name of Jesus, God, that whatever that has been said here, whatever that has been discussed here, oh God, it is for the betterment of your people, mighty God. We know the trial times that we are going through the island of St. Lucia. We know, oh God, what is happening to the people, oh God. Father, we ask you, oh God, to strengthen this man, this leader, oh God, who's going to take over the realms, oh God, that is going to create a positive impact in the life of the people. We have heard, oh God, his heart cry. We have heard what he has said. We have heard what he has in his mind, oh God, to do for your people. I pray in the name of Jesus, God, that you strengthen him. You give him the courage to carry on, to do what you have called him to do. God, you have, oh God, strengthen him to be a leader in such a time as this, mighty God. I pray, oh God, that the people that are standing with him, in the name of Jesus, God, are going to stand and hold his hands like they held the hand of Moses, oh God, in the name of Jesus. God, I pray that this afternoon, whatever has been done here, is been done in decency and in order. God, I thank you, oh God, that we, oh God, in this gathering, will have a great time. In the name of Jesus, thank you.
Please remain standing as we sing the national anthems, first of the United States, and the national anthem of St. Lucia will be led on violin by Miss Grace Ramjawang. We will sing together the national anthem of the United States. Thank you, Ms. Ramjawan. You may have your seats. We will now have welcome remarks by Mr. Rowan Fenelon.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It is absolutely inspiring to see the level of interest among St. Lucians abroad as it concerns the issues affecting our beloved St. Lucia. This is demonstrated by our presence here tonight. Honorable Philip J. Pierre, Leader of the Opposition and Parliamentary Representative for Castries East, the constituency I come from. Honorable Moses Jean-Baptiste, Parliamentary Representative for Vieux-Fort North and Chairman of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Mr. Leo Clark, General Secretary of the St. Lucia Labour Party. The Planning Committee members for this event, fellow St. Lucians and friends of St. Lucia, bienvenue, oswe sa. All right. Thank you all for attending our inaugural town hall for St. Lucia, to which we have invited the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, Leader of the Opposition. We would like to offer our appreciation, particularly to Mr. Pierre, for agreeing to join us tonight at this groundbreaking event. Town Hall for St. Lucia is the first of a series of high-profile meetings aimed at providing the Leader of the Opposition an opportunity to interact face-to-face with the diaspora. These meetings will offer a platform for exchanging ideas on how a Philip J. Pierre administration and the diaspora can work together to promote development in our beautiful island of St. Lucia. Based on the social media interactions of St. Lucians, both home and abroad, it is evident that as time has passed, our sense of national pride has grown by leaps and bounds. We see as well that expatriate St. Lucians have not cut ties with the island of St. Lucia, as indeed we have all maintained a keen eye on current affairs and future aspirations in St. Lucia. The Honorable Mr. Pierre will be addressing you shortly, after which he will answer as many questions as you may have. We also look forward and note to your suggestions as to how we can make St. Lucia a better place. Once again, a million thanks to every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fenelon. And I just want to reiterate something he said. He said you'll have an opportunity to ask as many questions as you would like to. I have been to 2 of the meetings with the Honorable Prime Minister, and there have been a limit to the questions that can be asked, and they are censored. So I just want to be sure that we will be able to ask as many questions as we are able to. Our next item is a performance once again by Ms. Grace Ramjawan. Thanks again, Ms. Ramjawan. I now call on Mr. Jeremiah Hyacinth, who will now present or introduce the Leader of the Opposition. And the next voice that you will hear at this podium will be the I'm sorry. Let me not say this. Let me just go back. Now we have greetings. I'm sorry. I'm apologizing to Mr. Honorable Moses Musa Jean-Baptiste. We have greetings on behalf of the St. Lucia Labour Party, and he's the chairman of the party and the parliamentary representative for Vieux Fort North, Honorable Moses Musa Jean-Baptiste.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate the warm welcome. Let me, at this time, even before I give my brief remarks, let me recognize my mother, who's in the audience, Kelly, Lucilla Jean-Baptiste, my aunt, my brother and his wife, and also let me recognize other St. Lucians who are from the Vieux Fort area. I represent the constituency of Vieux Fort North, and I recognize people from Vieux Fort North and Vieux Fort South. And also let me say greetings to everyone, my dear friends who are in the house, people I've known for a very, very long time. Bonjour tout le monde, et moi bien content moi ici. On behalf of the St. Lucia Labour Party, let me also say how happy I am to be here with our political leader, Honorable Philippe J. Pierre, who is the Member of Parliament for Castries East and the leader of the parliamentary opposition. Our General Secretary, who was introduced a while ago, is also here. But I also wish to bring greetings from the rest of the executive of the St. Lucia Labour Party, our General Council, the officers of the party, individuals who are chairpersons of the St. Lucia Labour Party, all of our members of the St. Lucia Labour Party in St. Lucia and abroad. And I want to say to you how pleased we are to be here in New York to speak with you and to discuss with you. I want to say to you, just as our political leader indicated, that we are gearing up for elections. We are preparing for elections. And this town hall meeting in New York is an extension of our series of town hall meetings. I'm sure you have been following our town hall meetings in St. Lucia. And as a matter of fact, we will be having another one very soon. So it is for me to say how pleased I am to be here. And on behalf of the St. Lucia Labour Party, we welcome you. Well, I'm very happy that you have welcomed us here in New York. And I wish to also thank those who are in St. Lucia and abroad who are viewing online and who will be participating in this meeting. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion in a little while. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the warm welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Moses Musa Jean-Baptiste. Now I present to you Mr. Jeremiah Hyacinth, who will introduce the Leader of the Opposition. And again, as I was saying before, the next voice that you will hear at the podium is that of Honorable Philippe J. Pierre, who is currently the Leader of the Opposition, but the God that I serve tells me that he could be. You have to speak the things that you want to happen. So the God that I serve tells me to speak this into this atmosphere. We are going to hear the voice of possibly the next Prime Minister of St. Lucia.
Good evening, fellow St. Lucians. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. My task is very simple: to introduce a man who has known me for a long time and someone I've come to truly admire. He's our distinguished leader, Honorable Philip J. Pierre. Philip J. Pierre grew up in a supportive home in the community of Waterworks, Castries, where to this day he still resides. In his informative years, his mother, a loving school teacher, and his father, a disciplined police officer, impressed on him a strong sense of caring and patriotism, and these are lessons that have remained with him throughout his life. From an early age, he displayed a love for learning. He was extremely disciplined, and through his hard work and dedication, he would excel academically, earning top honors at St. Mary's College and eventually the University of the West Indies. His entry into local politics grew from the same care and patriotism which his parents had instilled in him in spite of his setback in 1992. But instead, Philip remained motivated and won an election that would follow. He has since emerged victorious in that seat, which is Castries East, on 5 successive occasions in the process. He has become the constituency's longest-serving and most successful parliamentarian. However, Mr. Pierre's success has not been limited to his constituency. He has served as a member of cabinet on 3 separate occasions and has held the portfolios of Deputy Prime Minister, Tourism Minister, Minister for Infrastructure and Transport Services. He has served as leader of the opposition for the past 3 years, a stint which will come to an end at the next general elections when he emerges as our country's next Prime Minister. Brothers and sisters, Mr. Pierre is a statesman and remains invested in altering our current socioeconomic status, one that will benefit our sons and daughters of the soil. He knows where we have been, where we are currently, and where we ought to be heading. He recognizes that now, perhaps more than ever, the next government must provide opportunities to all St. Lucian, to all the people of St. Lucia. Opportunities to organize local, regional, and international profitable ventures in order to build our wealth and grow our resources. Opportunities to acquire a higher level of education and professional qualifications to realize our dreams, our dream careers, advance ourselves and indeed our country. Fellow St. Lucians, friends, well-wishers, brothers and sisters, it gives me a great honor to introduce to you the parliamentary representative for Castries East, political leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party, the current leader of the opposition, and St. Lucia's next Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mama Ilekai, Lakai, Isam n'a venu comme vous qui passe à parler patois. Jean Saint-Lucie, bon après-midi. Ça a fait. Thank you very much for receiving me, and thank you very much for attending this town hall meeting. I know it's not very easy for you to leave your homes on Sunday afternoon after a hard week of work and come to listen to a politician. But I really want to thank you for coming. I also want to thank the organizers, the people who put this whole afternoon together. I don't know whether I should mention names, but I know Vernette and Jeremiah and many other people and have been very instrumental. And all of you, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it. I thank you for it. And I hope one day I will be able to repay you, if not individually, but collectively, for the work you put and your support for our party. I thank you very much. How time flies. I cannot believe it's already 21 months since our last meeting. Many things have happened since then. I would have liked to tell you that all is good. That all is good in our country. That things have improved, but sadly, this is not the case. While all of you gathered here may not be members or even supporters of the St. Lucia Labour Party, I do know that you care deeply about your homeland, its people, and its future. And that is why I want to have a conversation with you, an open and frank conversation, about how we can shape the future, how we can create the change needed in St. Lucia, and how we can make it the country that you want to be proud of. You in the diaspora need to know that St. Lucia, our country, is always ready to welcome you back. A place we hope you will readily consider investing in, and one you will choose to return for your retirement, as well as one where your loved ones left at home can prosper and have satisfactory lives. We also aspire to develop a St. Lucia where people born in the USA of St. Lucian parents will feel that there are opportunities for them in the land of their forefathers. Sadly, we have today a country where the future prosperity and good name has been severely compromised, tarnished by questionable financial dealings, ineptitude, gross irresponsibility, and vindictiveness. The promised solutions to crime and violence have not materialized. Students and teachers are protesting about conditions at their schools. And there is a growing feeling of frustration among the youth, doubting whether their future aspirations can be realized in St. Lucia. I'm a born St. Lucian, fully in tune with my roots. My ambition is not the desire for personal power and wealth, but to build in our great country upon the values of integrity, hard work, meritocracy, inclusiveness, humility, truth, honesty, and love of country. Values that my policeman father and teacher mother nurtured in me, and values by which I try to live. We want economic prosperity for all, an economy based on the pillars of economic growth, stability, poverty reduction, equity, job creation, good governance, and environmental responsibility. We want St. Lucia to be attractive to investors, local and foreign, in a fair, competitive environment. But how can that happen? With a government awarding all its contracts directly, without any public tendering, to allow for the test of value for money. Direct awards rob businesses of the opportunity to offer their services in the island, and deprives the country of getting best value for money. I am sure that there are many of you resident in the USA who would relish the opportunity to tender on projects in St. Lucia. Yet, nearly every major government project is being awarded to someone without tendering. This has become the norm rather than the exception, a situation that was never intended when the public procurement rules were designed for honorable men and women to manage the affairs of the country. It is widely believed, and with justification, that these direct award contracts are being used as avenues for a few government figures and their collaborators to enrich themselves, their friends, their family, and foreigners. I do not wish at this time to go into details, but I can assure you that millions of dollars of contracts are awarded, including the proposed airport redevelopment. These contracts have been awarded without tendering. My friends, I do not believe that individuals should enter politics on the premise that they are there to serve when their real intent is to enrich themselves and their families. I pledge to you here and now that as Prime Minister, I will adopt a zero-tolerance approach to corruption in government. It is my sincere desire to leave politics as the same man as I entered. I live in the same house, with the same lifestyle, and the same motivation to be of service to my country and the wider St. Lucian community. I am sure that you will agree with me when I say that we must put the appropriate measures in place to eliminate corruption. Corruption in government is a scourge to the people of St. Lucia. Corruption militates against the optimum use of the country's resources. It breeds discontent. It destroys public confidence in the governance of the country and supports moral decadence in our country. Friends, debt in St. Lucia is increasing at an alarming rate. As we speak, our country's national debt is $5 billion. Of this amount, the UWP government has already incurred more than $1.3 billion in their 3.5 years in office. I am sure that you are aware of the effect of high debt on our sister Caribbean countries, Barbados being the most recent example. The high level of debt incurred in the last 3.5 years has been largely due to misguided policies and poor fiscal responsibility. Take, for example, the Iwanora International Airport Redevelopment Project. The government is borrowing $600 million without any public tendering for this project. Let me be clear that the St. Lucia Labour Party is not against the redevelopment of the Iwanora International Airport. Let me say it one more time. The St. Lucia Labour Party is not against the redevelopment of the Iwanora International Airport. When we left government, we were at a very advanced stage working with the World Bank on a private-public partnership, a PPP arrangement for this project, without placing any debt burden on the people of St. Lucia. Instead, the government canceled the PPP arrangement and is borrowing $600 million to finance the project. I want you to consider for a moment how $600 million used differently could transform the economy of St. Lucia. It would create a greater multiplier effect with many sectors benefiting: housing, infrastructure, health, education, and improvements in the country's climate resilience. $600 million could help in all these ways. We must never forget that these debts have to be repaid. And this avoidable debt of $600 million is now a burden placed not only on ourselves, but on our children and our children yet to be born. A government of the St. Lucia Labour Party would contain the level of borrowing by undertaking debt that is necessary and productive, and in so doing, avoid compromising the future of the country and the well-being of future generations. I know we share the common knowledge that St. Lucia is a small country with limited resources of land and people. We must therefore, at all times, seek to ensure our priorities as a government are such that the best use is made of our resources and these are employed wisely to improve the quality of life for our people and to ensure that you, in the diaspora, see St. Lucia as a welcoming place to do business or to retire. It is for this reason that we are alarmed at the government's careless attitude towards healthcare. The provision of quality healthcare will always be a challenge, and we admit the provision of quality healthcare will always be a challenge for any country. But never before in the history of our island has healthcare been so neglected and is in such a pitiful state. Meanwhile, the government is excited and boastful about the imminent opening of a horse racing track. Excitement over the opening of a horse racing track and the completion of stables to house horses. The arrival of horses to the island is met with government press conferences, police escort for horses, invitees from overseas, and children loaded with free ice cream to view horses. This twisted type of thinking and misguided priorities are having people to believe that the government actually cares more about horses and stables than about people and hospitals. With time running out before the next elections, they appear busy, very busy, to recommence construction at the St. Jude Hospital. Of course, the abandoned St. Jude Hospital buildings have deteriorated, which will increase the cost of the project. In all that, a number of questions remain unanswered. Who are the contractors? How were they chosen? Was the job tendered? What is the cost of the new construction? What will be housed there? What will be the fate of the existing buildings and the East Wing in particular? But above all, where is the justification for spending another $100 million on a project that could have been completed more than 3 years ago. What is the justification? Why did the government allow the buildings at St. Jude to remain instead of completing it, or instead of doing what they say they are doing now? Let me remind you, and I will be the first to agree, that we did not complete St. Jude, but the fact is, we never stopped working on the construction. And we were able to secure finance from the Taiwanese government of $20 million for its completion. And if we were in government, the St. Jude Hospital would have been completed. While St. Jude remains housed in deplorable conditions at the George Odlum Stadium, the OKEU Hospital is still not fully functional. The government derailed, in fact, the government fired the commissioning of the OKU Hospital by dismissing the hospital commissioning team, consisting of non-political actors headed by Dr. Stephen King. They fired that team and allowed sensitive medical equipment to remain idle, while Victoria Hospital is bursting at the seams, with conditions worsening on a daily basis. I want you to join me in expressing my sincere appreciation for the healthcare workers, doctors and nurses, for their services to the people of St. Lucia, which have been provided under very trying circumstances. The Labour Party continues to urge the government to exercise urgency in the completion of the St. Jude Hospital and commission the OKU Hospital to bring an end to the horror stories associated with existing conditions at our health facilities. Upon resuming office, we will immediately set to work on implementing a people-driven, people-oriented healthcare policy. It will be a policy which will be inclusive, affordable, accessible, and equitable, and will serve the healthcare interests of all. As a government in waiting, we pledge to be fiscally prudent in the management of the country. We understand the role of the private sector as the engine of growth, and we will encourage real, direct foreign investment, not foreign businesses that require the use of our NIC pension funds or the country's tax revenues to provide working capital to pay wages and other expenses while their profits are remitted overseas. In this regard, we condemn the government's approach to the DSH project in the south of the island. You may recall that when I spoke to you in February 2018, I outlined the terms and conditions of the agreement that were objectionable and not in the best interest of our country. Sadly, 2 years later, we have not received any updates or information regarding the details of the agreement and the obligations placed on the government and people of St. Lucia. What we do know is a horse racetrack has been built with a lack of clarity as to who is really funding the project, including who paid for the horses. Is it the investor or the St. Lucian taxpayer, either directly or by the sale of their passports. Even within the government, conflicting answers are being provided by the Prime Minister and officials from his office with regards to this question. What I can report to you as a fact, is that in order to facilitate the horse racing track, the government has used public funds to build a new road without tender at a cost of $13 million to replace the one condemned because it was in the way of the horse racing track. The closure of the Beauséjour agriculture station and the displacement of farmers who occupied the land now leased to DSH. The decommissioning of a $24 million meat processing plant donated by the Taiwanese, and the borrowing of $11 million from the NIC to purchase lands to rebuild the meat processing plant. And I must tell you that no construction has started. There is no logical reason that can be provided for this level of public investment in a horse racing track. It is simply an arrogant abuse of government authority with no regard for the public's right to know precisely what is the true arrangement between the government and the so-called investor. The Prime Minister's greatest comfort resides in the lack of public knowledge of what is going on at DSH. We maintain that there must be full disclosure on the contents of the DSH agreement. This agreement is too wide in scope and duration, 99 years, to be kept a secret. I know that there are those of you who want to return home and very anxious about being able to own a piece of land in the island of your birth. With this DSH agreement, 1,000 acres of land has been leased. 1,000 acres of land has been leased. Some of it at $1 per acre. Generations of St. Lucians with no guarantee that our people will benefit from what is being done on these lands. Comrades, there are alternatives for the development of our country. There are alternatives. And we need not sell our patrimony. An SLP government will create an environment that will encourage a viable, profitable local business sector by ensuring transparency and fairness. Transparency, fairness, and equity, particularly in the procurement of goods and services. We believe that home-based St. Lucians and nationals in the diaspora should share equally in the benefits of future incentive regimes, which previously benefited foreigners only. In consultation with our youth, we will seek workable solutions to the challenges faced by young people seeking meaningful and sustainable employment. The St. Lucia Labour Party believes that the youth are a significant demographic group, and investing in them will bring significant social and economic benefits. In this regard, we will create a dedicated budget to invest and stimulate an inclusive youth-based economy that will cater for the special interests of young people in their chosen lines of economic activity, such as sports, entertainment, creative industries, modeling, cultural activities, music, and information technology. I want you to give a round of applause to the young lady, Ms. Ramcharan, who played on the violin for us this afternoon. Special incentives and finance will be provided to support the involvement of young people in the areas of their special interests. And at all times, there will be consultation. At all times, we will speak not to them, but we will speak with them. You are well aware of the effects of climate change and its negative impact on small island states like St. Lucia. Here at home, I'm sure, we cannot forget the destruction of Hurricane Thomas, and not too long ago, the Christmas Eve storm on St. Lucia, and the devastation of Category 5 hurricanes on Dominica just this year and on the Bahamas. These experiences are reminders of the need to build more resilient infrastructure in St. Lucia. It is clear that the developed countries are not minded to give the required level of support to meet this new challenge. This means that we must fund our own mitigation efforts. Hence the reason why our country must be prudent and selective in our borrowing to secure the fiscal space to fund mitigation efforts to protect our land and our people. We cannot continue to waste our scarce resources on ill-conceived projects undertaken without full public scrutiny. I want to look a little into the future to tell you what we believe, how we believe our St. Lucia can prosper. We have new innovative plans which will be discussed with various sectors. We spoke about the youth economy. With these sectors, to ensure that there is broad participation and the eventual smooth implementation. We pledge to strengthen our land acquisition laws so that future governments will not be at liberty to appropriate and acquire lands for the benefit of a select few. In our plans, we will reform the education system of St. Lucia to better respond to the needs of the labor markets and for the new and emerging businesses. We shall upgrade our school facilities, improve the curriculum to prepare people for vocations and entrepreneurship and the emerging opportunities in technology. We shall embark on a program to encourage and facilitate the creation of one university graduate per household within a reasonable time. We'll encourage and incentivize the construction of luxury hotels and the confusion and mess that happened with the range development in St. Lucia that cost the taxpayers of St. Lucia millions of dollars, and while the range investors have just completed a hotel in Dominica and they are starting one in Grenada under Labour Party government, that confusion would have never happened. But we also will ensure that small and locally owned properties benefit from special incentives, including special marketing efforts and the strategic use of ELIF policy. We'll expand our tourism outreach and strive to make St. Lucia a center for ecotourism and sustainable tourism development. An SAP government will encourage investments in the agriculture sector, not only as a pillar of economic growth, but as a strategic food security objective and for improving nutrition and the enhancement of rural livelihoods. As a government, we will formulate a national land use policy to guide the use of land in St. Lucia. We are aware that there are a number of social issues facing our country. And since people are at the center of our political philosophy, we will endeavor to ensure that every worker can earn a livable wage, affordable housing, and an opportunity to live a better life. We will ensure that families are stronger and both men and women share equal responsibility for the maintenance and upbringing of their children. To reduce the level of gender inequality, we shall create more opportunities for women to participate at all levels of political and economic leadership in our country. My fellow St. Lucians, friends and comrades, while you are living in New York and other parts of the United States, I know that you care for your brothers and sisters at home. Your level of remittances is testimony to that. I know that you desire a caring, fair, and progressive St. Lucian society, and one which can support the growth and development of all St. Lucians. And so, I ask you to be a witness to the truth about the less than satisfactory conditions at home in every major sector, and to join the movement for change. Because our people, your people, deserve better. We must embark upon a bold new vision for St. Lucia. We need to battle corruption, crime, low living standards, lack of employment opportunities, especially among the youth, a deteriorating education system, and a substandard health service. We need to use the talents of our retired persons more effectively and embrace the exciting and new opportunities in the blue and green economy. Our country, and I believe, can do better. St. Lucians have a proud history of achievements and can be the island of choice to live and work. I know many of you are dreaming of the day when you return to settle in St. Lucia. I urge you to keep abreast with the happenings in our country and let your voices be heard. Stand up for what is right and speak up against wrongs and untruths. Stand up against corruption at home, regardless of who is found guilty. I believe that as a country, our country can be a better place. I have faith in the people of St. Lucia. I have faith in the commitment of the people of St. Lucia. And I have faith in you living in the diaspora. The St. Lucia Labour Party promises you a government of inclusiveness and a government that will put people first. We urge you to join us and encourage your friends and relatives to get involved in the movement for change. I thank you. I'm all yours, and Anupale.
This is the point at which everyone gets to participate. We now have our question and answer segment. A mic has been provided. DJ Eric will put the mic in a particular place. Just one ground rule for this. Let's limit each person who asks to one question for now. And then if you have another question, you can come back. So as you feel the need, you can go to the mic, ask your question so the Honorable Philip J. Pierre can give you answers.
Hello. Good day, everybody, all the St. Lucians who came out. I am happy to be a part of this. I'd like to address my concerns with Honorable Philip J. Pierre. I've had the opportunity to work with him, and also he is my parliamentary rep, East Castries. All right. I was excited that he was coming here to detail his plans and detail how he feels about the way forward for St. Lucia, and I'm excited not only as him being a credible leader and one who has a long track record. I just found out it was 30 years, and I must say that's very admirable. I have voted for him since I could vote. You're welcome, sir. And I'm excited not only to have this person probably as our next Prime Minister, but to have the possibilities that he could be our next Prime Minister, and also my next Prime Minister could also be my neighbor. So I am excited about that. I have two questions. A two-part question. So, as a St. Lucian living abroad, I want to know, number one, is there a local source that we can go to find out if our name is on the voters list? And number two, I want to know if there's any kind of plans to provide a charter or something that we can all go together and all come back together after the party. That's what I want to ask, and I hope you could answer my question. I hope we have somebody who could at least shed some light on my questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My question is to our future Prime Minister. My question is that there's always been a level of corruption in the St. Lucian government. And usually when these guys leave office, there's never any accountability. My question is, will your administration finally launch investigations in order for these men to be prosecuted as a future that zero corruption will be tolerated?
Good afternoon, sir. Minister of the North, Moses, and Honorable Pierre. My name is Alex Bond. I wanted to talk about things that affect me, but it's not enough time. So I'll go straight to the point. Before my 30 seconds question. My point is that I have been looking at Viewfort as one of the central core of the Labour Party, because the last times I think they lost was when Stephen ran against, I think, Peter Josie, and then Modest ran. That was the only 2 times I think they didn't win that election. Apart from that, VFOT have been loyal to this party. So, going forward, the redevelopment of VFOT is long overdue. Okay, now I am aware of the victims in the story because my documentary states exactly what you mentioned, Mr. Japia, concerning the relocation of the meat market, the demolition of the George Odlum Stadium, and the displacement of people in the South. Now, my documentary is just 13 minutes. It's on its rough stage. But I still want a director's award with it. Far less if it was a finished piece. Going forward, I want to ask my question. The schools are my main priority. As a founder, a 95-job worker, and 3 startups working tirelessly, one of my startups is to work in schools here in New York and in St. Lucia. I contacted the Prime Minister, your Prime Minister, Mr. Anthony. In his tenure, I contacted the current one, and neither one of them has taken any footsteps. What I would like you to do, sir, in future is see if you can bring our talent from the diaspora. For example, my talent as a filmmaker into the schools. Let the children be exposed to that for one reason. The other reason is coming. 2, I am very good computer and technology guy. I can show them how to build computers. And 3, I am currently a foreman at a construction company job. That's how good my skill is. So construction trades, I would like to teach them that too. Beside the point, what I'm asking you right now is can you implement an after-school program for the schools and can you hold that to your table? Thank you.
We will now allow the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Pierre, to answer the first 3 questions, and then we will have the next 3.
Thank you. The Honorable Moses Jabatis is here with me also, so he can probably answer some of the questions. Ms. Wyatt? Ms. Wyatt, I will answer your question. All right. Well, tell Ms. Wyatt for me that the voters list is online. So, hi. Thanks a lot for voting for me. The voters list is online. You can check it. Your name on the list is online. And once your name is on the voters list, no one can stop you from voting because it's on the voters list, right? The question you asked about a charter, that's a loaded question, heavily loaded. What I can tell you is that we can discuss a lot of things, but we'll keep that to discuss among ourselves, okay? Thanks anyhow. Corruption. You've heard me many times take a position of a zero tolerance towards corruption. I believe in that, and I believe that corruption has caused many, many, many things to happen in St. Lucia. I believe that if people see corruption at the highest level of government, at the highest level of society, that will filter down to the other levels of the society. So you have to nip it at the top. But we live in a society of laws and regulations. We cannot just go ahead and do things without laws and regulations. The first thing we will do is we will strengthen the Integrity Commission. We'll give it more teeth so that when government officials declare their assets, the Integrity Commission can tell them, where did you get the money from to get what you have? We cannot have a situation where people enter government in 1 year, and at the end of 4 years, they have wealth that they did not. So, first of all, we have to deal with it at that level. At the second level, if someone breaks your house, you will call the police will investigate, and the police will lay charges if they find there is evidence. The same way, if someone robs the government, we'll call the police, we'll have a forensic investigation, and charges will be leveled against people who break the law. Same way as a common criminal. If you break the law, you must pay the consequences of breaking the law. What I can assure you is in my government, there will be zero tolerance towards any form of corruption. Any form of corruption will be dealt with swiftly and promptly. But if after investigations anyone is found to have broken the law, just like somebody who breaks somebody's house, the processes will come into place. But moving forward, the government of the Labour Party will not tolerate any form of corruption at the governmental level. And that is why we are so alarmed at what is happening regarding direct awards. We are alarmed, and with due cause. A lot of the projects that the government has awarded by direct awards, these projects were spoken of years before. I'll give an example. The government says that they will build some roads. They have been speaking about these roads from their first budget, from 2017. They have been thinking of these roads. You mean to tell me the government could not tender for contractors to build these roads? These roads have to be built by direct awards? That is something that it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. Millions of dollars of contracts. Millions of dollars of contracts. The government gave a consultancy to a firm from Singapore, Malaysia. I don't know where they're from. Direct award. Millions of dollars. Absolutely no tendering. I am sure that there are consultants and their management consultants right in this room or in New York or in London who could tender for these jobs and do it even better than the people who they give the consultancy for. But they gave it without any tendering. We think that will stop, and it should stop, and the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party will put an end to that level of... And even though you want to say there is no corruption, but the perception of corruption is even worse than the corruption itself. You asked about the development of youth and the use of your skills. I made a point in my short address that we will make available the same concessions that we give to foreigners. A guy with your skills, you could apply for the consultancy that that foreign firm is doing. But you didn't even know it was happening. What we will do is we will level the playing field. We will make opportunities available to everyone. And the way you make these opportunities available is if you give people a fair chance to tender for these projects. So our solution is very simple, very simple. We are going to create an enabling environment that will be inclusive and that will give an opportunity to everyone with the necessary skills to contribute to the development of the country. We can take another 3 questions.
Good evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. My name is John. From Vieux-Fort. Moses is actually a classmate of mine. I'll make a comment and then I'll ask my question. Is that fair? Your point with regard to the, I guess, unauthorized contracts. If this is currently happening, is there recourse? Is there a way that you can manage that now so that the next 2 years these things don't continue to happen? That's just my comment. Think about it. My other point was that I noted here you have, it's called the movement of change, if I can use that quote. It's a very arduous list. It's quite extensive. 5 billion in debt at this point. If you can help us understand how we move from 5 billion in debt to then accomplish a lot of those wishes or sort of like these goals you have in terms of remedying where we are now. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. My name is John Mangal. The first issue for now I want to address is the issue of crime. Now, before that, I'm going to make a comment. It's often said that people say crime is not a political issue. I disagree with that. It is a political issue. It is not a partisan issue. So my question is, what approach will your administration have towards dealing with crime? I have my own suggestions, which I can see now, and then you come with it. Because I believe in the past, politicians believe they are experts in everything. They are not. So when the present Prime Minister says, Kenny didn't, I will fix, that's crap. You know? So what I believe the approach should be, though they have so many consultations before, that we have to start implementing and that we have to listen to the experts. So my suggestions, we have sociologists. We should not only look at enforcement of laws or crime from that perspective. We have to look at the prevention of crime. It's an area we don't look at. And for us to succeed in this area, you have to deal, everyone have to play the role. Mothers and fathers group. The government, we have to bring them together and say, what is your role? What is your role in dealing with crime in your community? Youth, sports, and community groups, what is your role? We have, from a government point of view, and teachers, what is your role? PTA, what is your role? Everyone has to play a role. We have no experts in that, and we have to listen to the sociologists. And I'm losing my track there. The other point is that the question, my basic question is, how do we plan to approach it in an all-inclusive manner? Especially because my worldview is especially focusing on prevention measures.
Mr. Pierre, good evening. Mr. Jean-Baptiste, I used to be your neighbor. My constituency used to be South, Beaufort South. So you probably know me, but it's been a long time. Mr. Pierre, I have so many questions, but I'll refrain from asking questions. But I'm going to challenge you today. See, I have been living here for quite a number of years. My children, some of them can be president of the United States, but somebody like me will never be president of the United States because I wasn't born here. Your immediate family, I'm sure, would be able to experience or tolerate your pains more than me. I'm challenging you today. Can you give us the assurance that when you become Prime Minister, not if, I believe that you will be the next Prime Minister of St. Lucia. Can you give us the assurance that you are going to visit our Constitution and amend our Constitution? If you are not a St. Lucian, you cannot be Prime Minister of St. Lucia. Thank you.
We will now hear from the Honorable Minister.
Thank you. The comrade who asked about the situation regarding debt in the country. We know that the debt situation in the country will cause a major problem and issue for us in government. We know that. But I want to just take you back just a few years in history and tell you, when we inherited the government in 2011, the deficit on current account was about 9%. I want to repeat it. The deficit on current account was about 9%. And by prudent fiscal management, by ensuring that the resources of the country were used in a way that discouraged waste and corruption, by an innovative tax policy, and you know, there's been a lot of discussion on VAT. A lot of discussion on VAT. You know, the present government promised to eliminate VAT, and I'm still challenging them to fulfill the election promise and eliminate VAT. That was in the Five to Stay Alive. They said they would eliminate VAT. We believe that by ensuring that, first of all, we control the level of borrowing. That is the first thing. We'll control the level of borrowing. I'll tell you some things that automatically we would never borrow for. We would never borrow $30 million to give some foreign firm to prepare what they call a plan. We would never do that. Right. We would never borrow $13 million to give a guy to draw pictures and renderings of playing fields. Well, in St. Lucia, we have a guy called Crafton, who is one of the best curators in the world. Crafton works for international associations. He does playing fields in Dubai. But in St. Lucia, we cannot use Crafton, but we have to bring somebody from overseas and pay them $13 million to draw pictures of improvements to playing fields. I can assure you, we would never do that as a government, never. Let me tell you something that we would not do. We would not take the resources of the country from the consolidated fund. And I just told you, we've spent about $48 million for a racetrack. We have $13 million to build a road. We've decommissioned a $24 million meat processing plant. And I'm sure the former Minister of Agriculture will tell you what that meat processing plant could do for St. Lucia. It could transform the agricultural sector in St. Lucia. Because as you know, we are one of the highest importers of agricultural products. And the meat processing plant would help convert and add value to the livestock and add value to these things so we could save our foreign exchange. We would not do that. What we also would do is we would encourage local business people. And we do not say that for just saying sake. We'd encourage people by giving them, by creating for them an enabling environment. An environment where they feel strengthened and empowered to develop and to invest in St. Lucia. Further, we would encourage new industries. And these new industries would help create foreign exchange and help expand the economy. I'm speaking about music. Jamaica makes billions of dollars through its music. We will encourage that. And these are things we've started. So by expansion of the economy, by expanding the economy along lines that are practical and along lines that are inclusive, we would move to ensure that the economy expands. And most importantly, we control the level of borrowing. Because when this government came into power, borrowing had been under control. Although they inherited or they got a rebasing of the national debt, where the national debt was reduced because the GDP was rebased. So the national debt in terms of volume, in terms of percentage, was reduced, but the debt remained the same. And further, we would deal with a serious level of trying to renegotiate our debt. But I agree with you that debt is going to be a burden for us. And that is why we are encouraging the government. We are pleading the government. And I am sure, with elections very, very near, they will be borrowing even more money to have more election projects. And finally, the $600 million that they borrowed to build the airport. And I want to tell you again, I want to say it again, we are not against the redevelopment of the Uanora Airport. Parti Labour, Parti Lupa Nipuni on airport qui pris bon. I want to make it clear. Because the propaganda that is being spread is that the Labour Party is against. The Labour Party is not against. The Labour Party is saying we could develop the airport without putting $600 million worth of debt on the people of St. Lucia. And Comrade Mangal, on your question about crime, I will never come anywhere and say to you, this man or this Prime Minister did not control crime. I will not say that. Because I understand the complexities of the crime situation, and you're very right about it. It's got to be an all-inclusive effort to reduce crime. What I can tell you is that I believe, and I sincerely believe, that there should be no political interference in crime prevention in the country. In our police force, there are many qualified individuals in sociology, in criminology, in law. But they must be allowed to do their work without political interference. Everyone, no one is above the law. If there is a law for Jack, there must be a law for Jill. The same law. And we believe that if there is a perception of justice, if people believe, and that is why we've made the point that when we get into government, we'll ensure that there is a specified budgetary allocation, a percentage towards crime prevention, crime reduction, and the strengthening of the judiciary system. We dealt with the perception of corruption, white-collar crime, yes. And I said earlier that you break a house, police investigate, you raid the government treasury, police investigate the same way. I made that point. So we know that the crime, and that is why you never hear us say, you never hear us blame any particular minister or government for crime. But that is not what was done to us. Fact is, when you were in government, any crime that happened, they used to say it's Kenny or Pierre. That is a fact. That is on the record. Anybody, if a guy was involved in abuse at his home, they say it's Kenny. If a guy did something, it's Pierre. That was what happened. That was what happened when we were. If somebody commits suicide, it's Alvina Reynolds. And there were some people who actually counted the number of murders and said 23, 24, 25. Under this government, there have been more murders than any time in the history of our government. And these, I know people may not like to hear it, but these are facts. But I agree with you that it must be an all-encompassing effort to stop crime. But also, there must be a perception of fairness. And you see, Mangal, you can't have a society where people believe that they will not get justice, where people believe it's only if you're poor you get arrested, where people believe that the law is only for few. There must be a perception of right and wrong. And our party will ensure that that field is leveled out. So justice is ready and available for all. Justice for all. But the crime situation is crucial, and more, the crimes are becoming more heinous. The crimes are becoming, only this week, only on Thursday, they entered a guy's house, a guy's 70-something years, and they bludgeoned his face. What, a 77-year-old man? It's really heartbreaking how what we've turned to, some of us have turned to in the country. But we want to ensure, we want to make it clear that our government will ensure that there is justice for all and there is no interference in the dispensation of justice in the country. About the Constitution of St. Lucia. Again, comrade, it's sometimes we always say, we repeat ourselves all the time. And part of the criticism they say is that our party always talks about the past. But if you don't know the past, you can't know the present nor the future. When we were in government, we had a constitutional review commission. I think they came here with the late Susie Dovey. Is that true? They came here and there were discussions on a new constitution. We lost the government. The draft constitutional review commission report was tabled in the parliament. People had their say, it was debated. I had my say, I had some misgivings, they were reported on, and then it was debated. The then Prime Minister offered to form a commission comprising of the opposition, the government, and civil society to review that report and to encompass some of the things that were said in the parliament so that they could come up with a new document. When we lost the election, when the United Workers' Party won the election, the Prime Minister had a discussion on the Constitution. He invited me, I went. He said that he would form that Constitutional Review Commission as was promised by the former government. He asked me to write him for some nominees. He even employed the former Attorney General, whom he had fired. He employed her to be in charge of that commission. I wrote him and I gave him the names of my two nominees, Claudius Francis and Curly George. I wrote him and I gave him these nominees. Up to today, the Prime Minister has not appointed his two nominees, and there has been no revision or no discussion on the issues that were raised in that document. So as far as the Constitution of St. Lucia is concerned, we are not to blame. We started the review. It's documented what we did, but we are waiting for the Prime Minister to give his two nominees so they can continue that discussion. But when we get into government, we will continue that discussion on a new constitution. And if there is consensus that the Prime Minister should not be a foreigner or should be someone born in St. Lucia, once there's consensus, after discussion and dialogue, so shall it be. Thank you. We'll have the other three, and I will ask the Honorable Moses about this to deal with the issue of Vieux-Fort of the south of the country.
1 second, ma'am. Before we take the next three questions, just two quick announcements. The first is that Mr. Carlton Augustine in the back, please raise your hand. He has membership applications for the St. Lucia Labour Party. If you are interested, you can go back there and receive one from him. The second announcement is that there is a 128 gigabyte iPad 6 that is being raffled. Tickets are $10. You can purchase your tickets from Miss Vernette Boncamper. Right up front. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jean Wilkinson, Daniel Kisna. We've heard everything you said this evening, sir, and we've heard it before. My main concern is that when you win, as everyone here is indicating that you are going to win, that you will continue to be the Prime Minister of St. Lucia and continue doing what the people want you to do, because every 5 years, it switches. And we will get you out of there if you don't follow the rule. But my question is, we know, I was born in St. Lucia in Vieux-Fort, that a lot of our men don't know how to keep their hands to themselves. So my question is, domestic violence against women and children. when there's an argument and men choose to raise their hands and hit a woman, yes, nothing is done about it. You call the police and nobody comes. There have to be laws to take care of this. Men are a lot stronger than women and should not be putting their hands on women. Along with the children, we don't want our children to get hurt because they are the adults of tomorrow. Please address how this is going to be cared for.
Les hommes, les héritiers, les chrétiens Didier, ils sont ici à parler, personne ne comprend pas toi. Eh bien, ils parlent pas toi, ils ont adressé des messieurs qui là en patois, en créole. Oui, moi style ça parle créole. Je suis sorti cette ici en juillet. Et premier bail dit moi là, il joue moi à l'aéroport là. Là moi je il dit moi, Daddy, I have learned to appreciate the things that non I decided il parlait en créole, so I have learned to appreciate the things that I have here because the children that I came across in St. Lucia don't have them. And I want you to tell your friends to help me fill a few barrels of food and send it back home. Ça m'a fait croiser chez moi. Si yon ti maman 15 ans ka wè nécessité pour un dé, maman a dans l'autre terre, il pas même connaître, même si il a allé là 3 fois, il pas même connaître tout. Mais il wè nécessité pour un dé c'est maman ça là. Ça qui a fait dans cette liste là, tout le monde a payé pour lui, grand comme petit. Et ça a croisé chez moi. Moi je dire en bien bon souhait, même s'il pas là, mais il a indiqué nous les jeudi au soir by M. Richard Frederick. Et moi si c'est pour ça en chaque monde connaît et savent ça qu'a dans cette liste. So moi je veux dire si pour lui au soir. Mais question Amado là au soir c'est moi savent ORC quand il visiter où. Yo voulez dire impact mais on commencer avec ORC. Moi savent les morceaux ça quand il visiter où là on a tué. Là on a tué, moi je savent comment on a dit les pays. Parce que il still ka tourner à terre. Although yo te dit nous, yo te ka dit les pays. Yo pas écrire. Moi veux savoir comment on ka dit les pays parce que situation couillement cette ici. Ah ouais. Tous les jours c'est un problème. Bon. CIP, moi j'ai un petit problème avec le premier ministre là, les moi je viens pays ces jours passés, les moments dit about CIP. Premier bail moi tout le monde dit, en les bas. Non, moi c'est un lycéen. Et manière avec Dominique qu'a floui avec l'argent CIP. Et moi pas même temps si c'est lycéen mon gars invest à partir de Joaquin. Moi voulais savoir ce qu'il dit nous. Et qui ça là nous qu'il fait? Because tous les jours je vais dormir, je vais rêver, je vais assis en parlant et puis c'est nom ça là. Parce que moi, still voulais goûter mes gens souffrir. Mais tous les jours, je me wonder, qui ça, l'agent CIP, qu'a fait ben nous en Sainte-Lucie? Moi, je voulais savoir qui côté il a mené nous, tous les cas, la ça il vient en l'emmène. Eh bien, l'emmène nous, parce que moi, je voulais assis en parlant avec eux. Tu vas dire l'emmène nous. Moi, je voulais savoir si nous mettons portrait contre Dominique en les computers et dit, ça c'est l'agent CIP, mais c'est ça il fait. Et finalement, moi j'ai un petit désordre avec M. Russell Lake. Finalement, mais je vais écouter bien. Et les gens qui disent, je vais écouter ces gens, je vais écouter tout le monde parce que moi je veux être avec des oreilles là, parce que je veux dire, yo dit. Il toujours dit, si les bas partis en tué, yo pas kay courir des horse racing track là. Yo pas kay courir des DSH. Moi vle tan from who qui a 6 ans l'étape ça là. Moi vle tan qui manière hot kay résolver situation DSH, DHS, TOA King là. Moi vle tan comment ce qui ça kay fait avec situation cheval ça parce que m'a acheter on. Moi pas acheter un cheval. À quoi donc là, just boka moi pas même coup cheval. So, Je veux savoir comment on a dit les pays, comment on a résolvé la situation. Parce que le problème là, tout est grave. Les gens qui payé en place là, parce que cheval avant l'hôpital. Merci.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. And I'd like to welcome the Honorable Mr. Pierre to New York. And thank you, everybody, for coming. I have a two-part question. One, it has to do with the crime situation in St. Lucia. And I'm going to forward to what's happening in New York right now. Everybody here knows the political climate is changing. And as an immigration officer, I'm concerned about what plan does the government have to deal with deportees? Because if that man gets back in there, there's going to be mass deportation. So I'd like to know if your government is going to consider how you're going to deal with deportees returning to the island and in terms of the crime situation. The next concern I have is, those of you who have your children born here, you need to put pressure on the current government to make it easy for you to go and register your children at the St. Lucia mission without you having to go to St. Lucia to pay for whatever they wanted to pay. That's ridiculous. If you're an American citizen, no matter where you're born in the world, you go to the American consulate and you register your child. That's it. So we should be afforded that same opportunity. Again, people, the political climate in this country is changing. So do not think that, oh, I'm here, I'm going back to St. Lucia. That's all we have. That little rock is ours. So please, I'd like you to address that. And the other thing is, with your when you become the Prime Minister, even before you become the Prime Minister right now, do you have a plan for national health care at affordable prices for all St. Lucians? Not the American model, either model after the British system or the Canadian system. Thank you.
I'm very happy at the level of discussion and dialogue that we are this afternoon. I think give us a round of applause. For the lady who asked about domestic violence. Domestic violence is a crime. The abuse of women and children is also a crime. And then we have to ensure, and this is why I spoke about the justice system. That is, we have to ensure that people who are found guilty of domestic violence, they suffer the full consequences of the law. In the criminal code, the new criminal code, there are many provisions about issues of domestic violence, about issues that relate to families, etc. But we are committed. And in the last speech I made, I spoke about the equal fatherhood legislation, where it would be law that fathers have to take responsibility for the maintenance of their children. Further, they would also have some benefits in that if they take responsibility, they must have custody, they must be able to see their children, they must be able to be with their children. That is going to be done by legislation. And we also said, as a policy, we are going to have legislation that will ensure that both men and women share the responsibility for the children, share it equally. Because we believe that the idea that as exists now, that the maximum amount of money a man must pay for the maintenance of his child is $225 a month. EC dollars. Huh? Nobody must pay it. And that's, again, that's the problem. That's the problem. We think that we have to revise all these laws because a lot of the delinquency starts at a point where children believe that they are not being given right opportunities, and they don't have a quality of life that they need. A lot of juvenile delinquency starts at this point. But further, and you might say it's not relevant. When we were in government, we had a series of programs that helped to give some level of economic sustenance to people of the lower income group. We had the STEP program. We had the STEP program where people were given a few dollars to help them maintain themselves and their families. The government stopped that program, and they have selective STEP for their supporters. We had the NICE program. We had the NICE program where we created employment for people, mainly single mothers, where the government would subsidize their employment so they could get some work and some money to maintain themselves and their children. We had the SMILES program, single mothers in life program, where we would train young women who had an early pregnancy so they could be able to integrate themselves more in the society. And in our new program, we have what we call, I don't know if you heard, the Youth Economy Program, where we're going to have a dedicated budget towards youth economic empowerment. Not putting some dollars in the Ministry of Trade and some dollars in the Ministry of Agriculture, but a dedicated ministry and a dedicated budget towards youth employment and the creation of opportunities for young people. This is a pledge of our government which we are going to deliver if we get into government. And the point you made about reporting when we get into government, you have the power. The people have the power, you know. If we don't report, they kick us out. And I'm hoping people who are not reporting will be kicked out. On the crime and the, I think I dealt with the crime already. On the deportees, it's a, but you know, there will be several, I don't know, I'm not know whether you're speaking about criminal deportees or what are you speaking about? Criminal deportees? Well, criminal deportees, I met a young man just a few weeks ago. He came here with his mother when he was 3 years old. 3. His mother took him up on a holiday, and he stayed. He got involved with, on the wrong side of the law. I didn't ask him what he did because first I said, boss, when I do nothing. That's what they normally say. So you don't really ask him because he didn't do anything. And he was 28 years of age. Right? And they landed him in St. Lucia. My sister, the guy knew nothing. You know what they call nothing about St. Lucia? He didn't even know if they have a place called St. Lucia. And they landed him. But it's a good thing. His father came to look for him. And the poor man, the poor guy is lost. He doesn't understand. He is just lost. So we're just working and hoping that he doesn't get back into air doing nothing. As you see, air doing nothing. So it's a serious problem. But all we can do, because you know, America is might. When America's, and might is right. When America sneezes, you catch influenza. So if America determines that they want to send back our people for us, what can we do? We can negotiate, we can talk, but really, I think it's a very unfair policy to take someone who has been living here for sometimes 30, 40 years, and you send them back to a country that they really do not know. What we can do about it is when these people come home, we hope that we are given adequate notice of these people coming home so we can prepare for them. We can prepare for them. We can kind of ease them in easily into the society. Because from the young guy I met, he knew nothing about St. Lucia. Yes. That's the point I just made. If you can ease them into society, we'll try. But I'll tell you something. That is a vexing problem. It's a vexing problem because from my experience with this young guy, it was almost heartbreaking because the guy, I mean, he was completely lost. He didn't understand many things. I think one day he said to me that he went for a bath and there was no water. So he said, I wondered where the water went. because he was brought up in a place that there's always water in the pipe. He couldn't understand that there was no water in a pipe in St. Lucia. That's what I made a point to you. You want to deal with a view for 10? And the national health. Sorry. Huh? The CIP program. You see, my brother, I'm glad you spoke about the CIP program. Let me tell you something about the CIP program. The CIP program has not brought one investment to St. Lucia. Let me tell you what happened. When we left government, we had negotiated with a company called Range. I mentioned that in my address, to build a hotel in St. Lucia. The company, when we came, we said to the guy, based on the legislation on the CIP program, that he will be given an allocation of passports to be sold for investment. So people would invest. Listen carefully. Listen carefully, because there's been a lot of misinformation on these things. And I want you to, I'm glad you're questioning me. You would invest in the Range program, in the Range Hotel, and in return, you would get a passport. You would invest, and in return, you would get a passport. When the government won the election, they banned it. They said, no, we're doing that again. They said that we would allow the guy to sell the passports and lend him the money at 2%. Listen carefully. And what I say here, I want you to fact check it. There's something on CNN called fact checking. I want you to fact check it. Fact check it. And see if I've said what's right or what's wrong. They said to the guy, you're going to begin allocation of passports, you will sell it, and we will lend you the money at 2% to build a hotel. We were on our knees saying to the Prime Minister, do not do that. Do not do that. Continue the way we had it. Continue. We said to him, that will not work. That will not work. We begged him. As usual, he says that we lost our right to speak because we lost the election. So we lost our right to speak. He did not listen. Not their right. 47,000 people voted for us. They lost their right because we lost the election. We warned them. We warned them about it. You know what happened? The deal with Range collapsed. Up to this moment, they have not told us what they had to pay Range to come out of that deal. If you look at the social and economic review, you will see in there, and again, I want you to check it. There's a line that says they had to pay money to a developer. Up to this day, they have not told us how much money that they paid Range for getting out of that deal, up to today. But they had to get it because Range promised to take them to court. That same Range developer has just opened a hotel in Dominica. The same Range developer. And that same Range developer is opening a hotel in Grenada, beginning to construct a hotel in Grenada. They promised us in St. Lucia from 2016 that they would build 5 new hotels. 5. 5 new hotels. And that's on the record. If you don't believe me, I want you to go to St. Lucia and show me 1 new hotel. If you show me 1, I don't have any money, but I'll give you $20. But they promised us 5 new hotels. But the Range, and when you hear people talk about investment and how the country did, but the Range Hotel, that we had done all the negotiations. All what the government had to do was just continue the negotiations, and the Range Hotel would be in St. Lucia. But as usual, they are trying their best to kill the memory, the legacy of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Any project that we started, the government has stopped it. Any project. And again, I want you to check it for yourself. The airport, the highway, the Millennium Highway, the Viewfort Administrative Complex, the St. Jude Hospital, the OKU Hospital, any project that this government, the Range project, the Soufrière Square, any project that we started, the government has just stopped it. Let me tell you something. When we get into government, if we find, third time, if we find any project that this government has started that is fair, that is done correctly, and it benefits St. Lucia, we will continue it. On the CIP program, we are begging the government to tell us what, first of all, the government changed the law regarding the use of CIP funds. And they formed what is called an economic fund. And let me tell you who is on that economic fund. They changed the law. And let me tell you who is on the economic fund. 5 civil servants, and their boss is the Minister of Finance. If you want to believe that, how can you have a committee that the boss, you're supposed to be an independent committee, but your boss is the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Economic Development? You understand? So they changed the law to ensure, and in that we said to them, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? There is no benefit in doing that. It is not going to be transparent and accountable. They have not listened to us. We've asked them how much is in the National Economic Fund. They have not told us. So my answer to you, my brother, is I do not know. I haven't got a truthful representation of what is happening to the CIP funds in St. Lucia. And this government, this Prime Minister, when we implemented the CIP program, he said that the CIP funds should be used for debt reduction. But he tabled something in the parliament, some document that said they used it to pay this, pay that, pay the other. But as to an authentic document as to how the CIP funds were used, as was envisaged when we created the CIP. When we created the CIP, we said that the CIP funds, they would have to come to Parliament to see how the CIP funds will be used. That hasn't happened. So our question, the answer to me, my answer to you is that we're not sure how the CIP funds are being used. Affordable health care. Again, I'm sorry if I go back in time. When we were in government, we started to implement a universal health care. People with diabetes and hypertension were getting their medication free. We started there. When we left government, we formed a committee. And I want to tell you, that committee did not comprise of politicians. Because as my brother said a while ago, Brother Mangal, these guys believe as soon as they win the election, they have the answer to all the questions of the country. Because they win the election, they become engineers, they are doctors, they are financiers, they are bankers, because they win the election. We do not believe that. So what we did is we formed a commission that comprised of doctors, people from the EU, local doctors, to prepare a new universal health care plan. That's what we prepared. I want to reemphasize that that committee involved were non-political people, technocrats, doctors. There were some people from the European Union. The government came into power and they squashed it. They just squashed it. That committee had given a few ways in which we could have implemented universal health care. There were a few ways, there were a few ideas about how it could have been implemented. We did not implement it because we were still discussing these issues. The government came and they squashed it. And you heard them speak about a health insurance plan. Up to today, we've heard nothing about the health insurance plan. Nothing. We heard a minister say, you'll have a card and you can get $100. I mean, if that thing wasn't so serious, it would be funny. Up to today, we've heard nothing about the health insurance up to this moment. I was having some discussions with some people from a major body on Thursday, and I said to them, have you included in your plans the health insurance plan for St. Lucia? They said they know nothing about that. That's the situation we are in St. Lucia. But we still believe that we can achieve universal health care for St. Lucia. And our priority in government is going to be health, affordable health, equitable, distributed, so all the people of St. Lucia can benefit from better health and better health facilities.
Okay, thank you very much. The political leader has asked me to deal with the issues relating to Vieux Fort and the South. Someone mentioned the whole issue of Vieux Fort and the south of the country. Very quickly, I want to tell you that there's a lot of talk about DSH and the horse racing track, and the government has indicated that this would be what would catalyze and change Vieux Fort and turn Vieux Fort into a bustling town and city and all of that kind of thing. I want to say to you very quickly that the St. Lucia Labour Party understands what development of a rural area and rural communities mean. The development of the south of the country does not mean that all of a sudden we need to take out all of the farms and remove all of the forests and the trees and put hotels everywhere and so on. You can have very strong economic activity and employment out of what is happening in the rural areas of St. Lucia. So I want to tell you, before I explain to you how we see the rural sector, the rural communities of St. Lucia, I want to tell you what the Labour Party under Honorable Philip J. Pierre, Dr. Kenny Anthony, and others who were in the cabinet before me did. You would recall that two main activities really control employment and economic activity in Vieux Fort. If we remove the factories that were there for a while, it is really agriculture, bananas and crops, sweet potatoes, vegetable farmers, small ruminant farmers like goat farmers and sheep farmers, pig farmers, and fishers, fishing. Fishing in Vieux Fort and in the south of St. Lucia employ hundreds of people directly. I'm talking about fishers, fishermen, fisher ladies. And when you add all of these people who retail, like sell fish to the hotels, and if you add all of these people who do fishmongering, people who clean fish and so on, that is economic activity. The whole fisheries sector in St. Lucia last 2 years accounted for about 26 million ICI dollars. And if you consider that Vieux Fort has the majority of fishers, you're talking about millions of dollars of economic activity. So what did the Labour Party do? The Labour Party invested infrastructure in the fisheries sector by building the largest fisheries complex in the Eastern Caribbean in Vieux Fort. Those of you from Vieux Fort know how people sold fish. There is still a lot of improvement to be done now. It is not the way it really should be. But if you're talking about development of the South and development of Vieux Fort, the fisheries sector is a major hub of economic activity in Vieux Fort that was developed by the Labour Party. Infrastructure, refrigeration, and so on. Secondly, when you speak about agriculture, which is another major part of the economic hub of the south of St. Lucia, the St. Lucia Labour Party identified lands at Beauséjour through a cabinet conclusion to build what was then called an abattoir, which turned into a meat processing plant. The United Workers' Party government built it with funds from the Taiwanese, and when we came into government, we completed it. By the time we lost the government, I was Minister for Agriculture, I was Minister for Fisheries, Cooperatives, and Rural Development. We improved what they left, and we finished the job because it was a mess what they left. And the meat processing plant was ready for delivery to the farmers. This meat processing plant could inject another 25 million ICI dollars into the economy of the rural sector in St. Lucia. We import about 25 to 27 million dollars worth of chevron, goat meat, sheep, and I mean, you name it. And then we envisaged that that meat processing plant would have processed animals into all kinds of cuts and ham and bacon and so on. This government came in and they stopped. They are going to demolish it because of the horse racing track. So you have to imagine all the farmers from Soufrière going all the way to Dennery North and the valley who have sheep and goats and so on. You have to imagine what has been lost. And they talk about developing the South. You can only develop a place if you put infrastructure, if you cause employment creation. So if you do something that does not cause employment creation, that does not generate economic activity, what are you talking about? Then the Labour Party decided, okay, in addition to this, the meat processing plant, improving fisheries, as Honorable Philip J. Pierre told you, we are going to build an administrative center, a building which would take all of these services like getting your birth certificate, your passport, all of these things, your driver's license, instead of traveling to Castries, we would have it right there in Vieux Fort. So if you're talking about economic activity, just imagine the thousands of people who would just travel to Vieux Fort. And when they come to Vieux Fort, they have to eat. So they would go to the restaurant nearby, by Chanel's or all of these restaurants. And they have to travel, so they would pay the bus, they go to Vieux Fort. That's economic activity. What did this government do? They stopped it. So once again, they destroyed the potential for economic activity in the south of St. Lucia. And there are so many other things. We went on and we developed a landing facility in Pralin, which is in the constituency of Vieux Fort North, where I represent, a jetty and facilities and so on, to improve fisheries so that there is economic activity. And what did we do also? Honorable Philip J. Pierre spoke about the Range Hotel. And the Range Hotel would have been in Black Bay, right there in the south. So you know what that would have done? Farmers would sell to the hotel, economic activity. In addition to the construction, hundreds of people working at the hotel, economic activity. And you know what? There was another hotel which would have been built in canals. Those of you who know Vieux-Fort, when you leave Palmis and you're going up canals, by the Canals Bridge, all the way Pointe des Cailles, these areas, there was another hotel to be built there through the CIP. This government came in and the arrangements were quashed. So just imagine what would have happened to the South. With these two big hotels, employment, farmers selling vegetables and meat and so on, fisheries being improved, the administrative center, so more economic activity, and the DSH. Honorable Pierre and others have told you, we started negotiations for DSH. We started it. I was Minister for Agriculture, and I sat around the table with T.O.R. King, and we say so all the time. I met T.O.R. King before. We sat around the table debating with him because our government would not accept what he wanted. We would not accept it. Yes, we were interested in the horse racing track, but we were not interested in giving him all the lands by Sandy Beach, giving him all of the mangrove, even where the stadium is located now, based on the agreement that we have seen, belongs to him. The whole of Vieux-Fort, where most of the lands, the government lands, all of these lands, based on the agreement that we have seen, actually is part of his program. We would never accept that. And we would never accept the destruction of the meat processing plant. Even up to a point where he said to us, okay, we are going to leave the meat processing plant, but you cannot kill pigs there. That was his attitude. And we are saying those things, as Honorable Philip J.P. has said, because we can prove, we are speaking the truth. And we don't have to hide behind censoring your questions. We don't have to say you only have, we can't answer this and can't answer that. We can answer them because they are truthful. So I want to tell you that this joke about they come in for the South and they're developing the South, a lot of it is really just talk, because you can see based on what I've said to you, and you can go and find the evidence that our plan to develop the South was more than just talking about horse racing. It was all of these opportunities for employment, but very importantly, keeping the rural nature of the South and creating opportunities out of agriculture, fisheries, tourism, and so on. So that is what we hope we will continue to do, and the development of the South has always been key for the Labour Party. Thank you very much.
You asked me something about somebody just reminded me about what we'll do about DSH. As I said in my speech, in my little talk with you, we do not know what's in the DSH agreement. And that's the problem. We do not know what is in the DSH agreement. Let me give an example very, very quickly. The Prime Minister said that the horses were being paid for by the investor. Right? That's what he said. Then we heard that, that local people can buy horses. They say you can buy a slot, so you can buy a horse leg. They said local people can buy a slot. So they said each horse costs $20,000. All right? Then they said so. So it comes from a situation where the investor is paying for the horses to a situation where a horse going for $20,000 and you can buy a slot. Okay? Then a master lady in St. Lucia, a very powerful lady, comes on television and says, the Prime Minister misspoke. And these are facts. She said the Prime Minister didn't know what he was saying. He misspoke in that the investor is not paying for the horses. Now, but what we know is there are 43 horses. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, please. Somebody said, I think one of our comrades said he lives next to a horse racing track. Right? So, you know, and there's horse racing in Barbados, there's horse racing in Trinidad, there's horse racing in Jamaica, there's horse racing in these countries. They say the horse race is on the 14th of December. 14th of December. I will give you $20 if you tell me the name of one horse that races. And you see, but they want us to be happy. They want to say horse racing is coming, and they talk about people going to invest because of horse racing. What I want to tell you is that if there is horse racing in December, and you have to bet on the horses, you're supposed to know what horse is racing. It's not common sense, comrades? If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But up to now, first of all, we don't know who owned the horses. And secondly, we don't know what's the name of the horses. We don't know who are the jockeys. We know nothing. So how you can bet on something next month that you don't know anything about? So that whole thing is questionable. And what annoys them the most is that they say they have an open house for horses. So they invite everybody to come to Vieux-Fort to see horses. Come to Vieux-Fort to see horses in the stable. And to encourage children to come, they say we're giving you ice cream. And they get very annoyed when I raise that up. When I raise that, they get very annoyed at me. They say all kinds of things about me on Facebook because I said the horse racing track is not the first investment that St. Lucia ever had. How come you never invite St. Lucians to go and see when they build in a hotel? And you say it's an investment. How come you never invite children, tell people, bring their families, we're going to have rides and all kinds of the children to see a horse racing track? I said to them, that is not right. That is making the people of St. Lucia believe that you can con them. So they're annoyed at me for that. So your answer to DSH, my brother, is that our first job is to find out what is in that DSH agreement, because up to today, we do not know, and the people of St. Lucia do not know.
Good night, comrades. Marcia Clark at the mic. I just want to say one thing, first and foremost. I think our St. Lucians need to be politically educated. I think that's one of our biggest issues. Because when a man stands on the podium and he says to our St. Lucian people, I am going to go to the President of the United States, and he's going to remove visas so that we can go to the United States and not use visas. And you hear, yeah, they clap. There's something fundamentally wrong with our people. When you say to me that there will be changing in our pockets, and our young people fall for that, it tells me that we are not politically educated. What I need to find out from Mr. Pierre and Mr. Musa, is there any way that we can hold, I don't know, workshops, seminars, whatever is necessary to help educate our people in terms of voting? Because I'm lost about some of the things that we fall for as the electorate. And sometimes we say there's a patois program that we sometimes say, oh, people are not going to listen to that. But they do listen to it. There are people who know better. And because of their affiliation with the other side, continue to prey on the gullible and the ignorant people in St. Lucia. This last election, you SLP supporters got caught up in the fray and voted against the SLP because of all of these nonsensical promises that were made on the other side. So we need to be able to educate our people in some way. I'm not sure how you're going to do it. Probably the new candidates can go and use a group of persons to help them educate the people in their constituencies. But we do need, because I'll tell you something, irrespective of all the nonsense that's going on now, there's still people who believe everything that is being said. And that is frightening. And so we must be vigorous. We must take the time. You can pay me, I'll come down to St. Lucia tomorrow and start it. But we need to educate, and it's not a joke, you know. I'm just saying that we need to educate our populace because we are going to run into some serious problems if this continues. And we need to find somehow, somewhere to okay, we voted Alan as our prime minister. When we knew very well that as a minister of tourism, he failed miserably. Miserably. I worked with him under the tourist board. He failed miserably. There was boxing in paradise. Failure. There was health and wellness. Failure. There was, help me, Rowan. Food and rum. Failure. It was one failure after another. But they still voted in him. We'll make St. Lucia great again. Come on. We need to do something. And I'm telling you, I worked with you, Honorable Pierre, and you were the best thing that happened to the tourism industry. You were honest. You were somebody who would travel on behalf of the board, and if you owed us $2, you would write a check for your $2, send in your per diem form, and ensure that you don't owe us any money. So I could put my neck on the block and tell them that when it comes to integrity and ethics, you are high on the pedestal. Okay? But I'm saying to you, Honorable Pierre, please take this seriously. We need to find ways to educate our populace. I didn't have a question, I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes, me again. What I wanted to know is, well, my question is, the present government has disregarded a lot of the legal norms. I want to know if you, the opposition party, are taking any steps to ensure a fair election. Will there be independent bodies to monitor the next election? And my second part of the question is it possible for when you get into office to undo a lot of the contracts that the present government has signed since you had no knowledge of what it entailed?
Good evening, everyone. My question to Honorable Philip, my next Prime Minister. That's right. My next Prime Minister. What are your plans for taking control of that Theo Atkins thing, that $1 square feet? Because I have land to buy too. And I'm ready to buy my land. So when you come in office, what's your plan with that DSH?
Good evening to all. I'm Quen James. I'm from the constituency of Castries South. My background, I worked at the seaports and I also worked in tourism transportation. So if any of my comments or questions, that's where they will be coming from. Just wanted to follow up from the gentleman who spoke about film. The gentleman who spoke earlier about film. Right. That, I believe, is one of the things that has made America one of the greatest countries in the world. It's the export of your culture by way of film. And I always used to say to friends of mine, if I was responsible for a buy local campaign in St. Lucia, the first thing I would do is impose a heavy tax on cable television, right? But having said that, I think, like you alluded to, the creative industries, I think the creative industries is a good thing, but the training needs to be focused in the right place, from the basics coming up. So I just wanted to mention that. The crime, I'm particularly concerned about the crime situation in St. Lucia, particularly in the Castries Basin. I'm from Castries South. I spend a lot of time in the rural areas as well. I realize some of the underground or inner city stuff has moved over, I guess possibly because of the exiting of bananas, but I think that's something that needs to be looked at. I think it was great that the Labour Party administration had programs like the STEP program, the NICE program, Poverty Reduction Fund, SMILES, a lot of them. I know at least for the NICE there were challenges with sustainability, at least prior to the last election there was with the renewal of the contracts, but I would like you to speak to that a little bit as to when you get back in office, how would you implement these programs? Would they be in the same way or? But I believe they're important and I believe they're good. The laptops for all, including everybody, I believe that was a brilliant program. I also believe that the introduction of IT, barring the security concerns with internet and technology, I think that was a great program, and I think we're behind, but trying to catch up with the rest of the world where that is concerned. I think that was a great initiative. If you could speak to that, what we can expect of that in the future. A few people spoke about corruption, and I guess it's on a lot of people's mind. And it brings me back to prior to the last general election, there was a constituencies council audit. I don't know if you could speak to that. I remember there were names in the media of people who were found to have committed improprieties. But again, they were never brought before the courts. I don't know if the expectation was to try to find the politician behind it. But there's at least one name from the constituency of Beaufort South that was mentioned. And now that person is one of the mouthpieces of the government with special implementation responsibility, I don't know. But essentially what I'm saying is, whoever that is involved, they should be targeted. Whoever is involved should be targeted. Other people would think not to get involved. I also know that the marijuana debate is unfolding, so I'd also like you to touch on that, because I'm not a smoker of marijuana, but I believe it's a very powerful plant, and I believe St. Lucia has some good grade, so something to look into. No, I consider the drugs the one that you manufacture. Marijuana is a plant. The drugs that you manufacture is the ones that causing the real crime problems in St. Lucia. Possibly. I also know that you were deeply involved in the concessions and spreading out the concessions more evenly in the tourism sector. I know that prior to the last general election, there was a new incentive plan on stream, which my information is that it's completely stopped. So the question would be, what is the incentive, particularly in the area of taxi drivers and I guess generally tourism? What can we look forward to? Then another major one for me is there's a particular media outlet that I listen to every day here. And for the better part of this year, almost every day, the word recession is mentioned. As somebody with an economic degree as your base, I would like you to speak to that as well. Because I understand that there's an economic cycle, which some people say it's 7 to 10 years. It somehow hits, no matter what happens. We are in that range of time. And I remember in St. Lucia, when the last economic cycle hit, St. Lucia was bustling with economic activity. There were several hotel developments going on at the time, which just came to a halt. As somebody in the tourism transportation industry, I felt it, right? Right now, we're pretty much expecting a recession anytime. There are no hotels being built. So I think that is a very serious consideration moving forward. What to expect, how do we buffer from the effects of the recession, which takes many years to come out of. And in closing, well, the consensus is here for you to be the next Prime Minister, that you will be the next Prime Minister of St. Lucia, and you have my support as well. And I also congratulate you and your team, and we look forward to the selection of candidates moving forward to the next general election.
Please allow me to say at this time that we will take the last 2 questions after this. I'm informing you that there will be no more questions that the Honorable Minister will be addressing. So the last 2 questions. Yes. Any questions? He's saying that you can speak to him during the refreshment time, whatever it is, but we'll take the last 2 questions. Last 2. Okay, last 3.
All right, thank you. I will first deal with my comments on an issue which I think is critical to the development of our country. That it has to do with tourism development versus agriculture. And my belief is that no matter how much money we think we make, tourism brings into the country, I believe that agriculture should be the foundation of St. Lucia's economy. In my entire lifetime, and I would like to say that before, what we really had was bananas. We didn't have agriculture until Moussa Jabatis came into office. And I have a great deal of respect for him, because in my entire life, the only time there was an attempt to diversify the agriculture industry before him was in 79-82. And you know what happened with that government. So agriculture and what he was talking about, fisheries and so on, is about empowering our people. And what we have now with DSH is about people working for. And that's the problem I have with the tourism industry, that we want to work for and we don't want to own. To control our tourism, our economic destiny, we need to own. And this government is making people, we don't own anything. We just work in, and build hotels. And even in the accommodation sector, I work in the tourism industry. It's an area where my family and we made the most money. In the transportation sector. And there's something which is happening that I feel the government should address. Because we talk about free and they let us compete. But you have people in the accommodation sector, like Sandals, in the transportation sector. What are they doing there? And then you have, they're in the business, they're dividing transportation people. And then what you used to make 10, 12 years ago, you don't make it. And that's a point, and I have to bring up, when my dad was alive, he actually left the industry because he decided he was not going to work for the lower price they were trying to make people work for. And now, people who do in the first seater buses we were into, they're making half the amount of money they're making now. All of them out of business because we must understand the nature of big business and telling you to compete. But the only reason why they're telling you to compete, to fight among yourself, because we're not united, is so that they can make bigger profits. And we have to look at what is happening. The income inequality gap is widening. That's why we have that problem. It is widening. Those on top making all the money. So when they tell you, oh, the economy is doing well, how many in the economy is doing well? Who is making it? Who is making it? The few at the top is making the economy. They're probably making 10, 20 times your amount. So the general economy, it doesn't take into consideration the hotel worker who's not having a living wage. They don't have a living wage. So we have to look and pay attention to the widening gap, the income inequality, and the undermining of unions, and the fact that hotels like Sandals, you can't unionize, because I know people who are working there, every time they want to unionize, they throw a big party for people. They bribe them. That's what they do. We have to get serious about workers' rights and then make sure that the Because when you own, agriculture, bananas had a direct impact on everybody. They own the stuff. They own the stuff, so they are empowered. Ching, ching in your pocket, you own nothing.
Honorable Prime Minister in waiting, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, Honorable Moses Jean-Baptiste, Carlton Augustine, better known as Pret, just to make a few comments, not just a question. I want to admonish the supporters here. You have to be more involved. The leader, the executive cannot do everything. See how enthused Flabo supporters are. For example, they were so giddy about the horse race. As I said, tout pines Flabo te dewo. I mean, you saw them, a little horse race, the horses came in. Because I'm on Facebook all the time, I interact with them. I have to beg them sometimes. They were, they were beaten. And saw how they were so enthused for the horse race. And I don't see that same enthusiasm from Labour supporters. For example, Nancy Charles was on Facebook last week claiming that there was no commissioning team, which is not true. Out of all the Labour supporters, there were just about 3 of us who engaged her. I'm saying we have to be, the party cannot succeed alone by the leader and the rest of the executive working hard. We have to be even more enthusiastic than the Flabo supporters. Because even in their hearts, you know that this horse racing thing will fail. They still support it. They still support it. That's how enthused. They hold on to anything the Prime Minister will say, even if they know it's not true. So we, as Labour people, in the interest of St. Lucia, not just for the party, we have to be more involved. Think of the future of your children. And I could tell you, I'm an economist by training, spent 13 years at ECCB, I've been trained by IMF and World Bank, and I could tell you, another 5 years of Alan Chasney is going to kill St. Lucia. Our children and their children will have no future. They will be drowning in debt. So it is in our interest to walk out of it enthused, pay our dues, interact with people, sell the Labour message. Labour is a different party than the UWP. And if another 5 years of Alan Chasney, St. Lucia will be dead. Do we really want this? Do we really want this? So let's walk out of here feeling enthused and more involved, more engaged. Thank you.
Mr. Pierre, Philip J. Pierre, and Mr. Jean-Baptiste, I just want to thank you for coming in and dialoguing with us at this town hall. I just have one major, not a question, but well, yeah, a question. So our economy in St. Lucia is built largely on tourism. I think we all know that, right? And we are primarily a tourist-driven economy. Now, we have the pitons in Soufrière and the Sulphur Springs, 2 iconic pieces of parts of St. Lucia. One is a World Heritage Site, and yet after all of these decades, we have decade after decade, party after party, government after government, and no one has actually put a development plan in place for Soufrière. No one. So I'm thinking, why is it that we're a tourist-driven economy? We have 2 iconic, every one of us here today are so proud to put pictures and images of the pitons. Yeah, I'm a proud St. Lucian. And yet, with all of these changes of government, no one has actually put a development plan in place for Soufrière. We have not learned how to leverage those 2 things that we have, that if these 2 things were in Jamaica, for example, they would have blown up. The pitons and the Sulphur Springs would have been blown up. No one has the Sulphur Springs where you have, you can go into a park and you can actually drive through the Sulphur Springs. We're the only ones that have that. And yet we have not learned how to leverage it properly to have a development plan all around Soufrière and the environment. So I'm asking you, what do you have what's your plan for Soufrière? What is the plan that the Labour Party has in place to develop Soufrière and build on what we have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that we've been having a very, very interesting discourse. Very interesting. I want to thank you again. I'm going to be very brief on this. If you can do the last one first. My brother spoke about Soufrière, and he's correct. First of all, Soufrière is a heritage site. And then we tried our best to ensure that Soufrière remained a heritage site and all the benefits that accrue because of Soufrière being a heritage site. As we speak, I do not know what is the status, because as you know, there's a famous quotation from our Prime Minister where he said that our patrimony is in our credit card. That's a famous quotation from him. He said our patrimony is our credit card, our credit rating. So I'm not sure as to what has happened as far as that's concerned. But I want to tell you something about Soufrière and the Sulphur Springs. And you're very correct that not enough use has been made of these two icons. But if I don't want to, I'm not telling tales out of school. If I told you, when I was Minister of Tourism, we built an implementation center in Soufrière. And if you drive up to the top of it, you will see that building there, where the intention of that building was to have an exhibition, a mini exhibitions, and to display certain things about the history of Soufrière. That building was built when I was minister. What's happened to it now, I am not sure. We also were looking at the use of the Sulphur Springs for purposes of renewable energy. Because it is said that the Sulphur Springs, there is a rich source of renewable energy, and it would limit or it would reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. So we look at stuff. So we had the Sulphur Springs for dual purposes. Both of them economic, but one of them in the medium run and in the longer term. But again, we don't know what the government is doing, but I know a lot of work had been done to ensure or to find out whether we could generate power from the Sulphur Springs. So Soufrière was seen as a town that would be the tourism mecca, and we strengthened the Soufrière Development Foundation that handled matters of Soufrière. After the hurricane, the Soufrière Road was the first thing we repaired. We did a number of bridges in Soufrière, so much so people called Soufrière Bridgetown. We started the Soufrière Square that would give Soufrière a center where people could come and look at the history of Soufrière, etc. The government stopped it. They just started it a few months ago. They completed a few months ago. We had the redevelopment of the Old Trafford area in Soufrière, where we would have developed it as a place for craft and for craft, etc. So there were plans for Soufrière. But I agree with you that more use should have been made for Soufrière because of its rich heritage and its rich culture. So we agree on that, but we're telling you that these plans had started and they will continue when we get back into government. About agriculture and tourism, Comrade Mangal, I'll give you 100%. So there's no discussion on that. It was under Comrade Moses Jabatis that we passed an agricultural incentive act where we incentivize agriculture, where we made incentives available to farmers. And I remember clearly the Honorable Moses Jabatis in the Parliament talking about soil conservation and not planting near rivers to avoid erosion. And he was laughed at and joked at as usual. this government promised to send bananas to France and Martinique. They said there will be tons of bananas being shipped to France and Martinique. And the Prime Minister said, whilst he was in opposition, he had held a meeting with people in France and Martinique to buy our bananas. Up to this day, they sent one shipment and they said there was confusion with short fingers and long fingers. Then, but I want to tell you something about the DSH agreement. We had, and we spoke about agriculture. And I want to tell you something. And I want anybody, any Facebook troll, to say, I'm not speaking the truth. There was a plan for the redevelopment of the Bossejou agricultural station. That plan was financed by Brazil, the BRICS countries, IPSA. When I was Minister of Infrastructure, we went down there, I think in about March, it was March or thing, and we turned the sword to develop the Bossejou agricultural station, to have livestock, to have, in fact, there's a standing joke about Moses, how he imported goats. So we started that development. You can imagine if that Bossejou station was developed fully, if the meat processing plant was in place, if the farmers who were producing food crops on the land that the government gave to DSH, if these farmers were insensitized, if these farmers were given even more land, you can imagine what would happen to agriculture and to that whole area for agricultural growth and development. That is what the government stopped. That is the price we paid for DSH. And the point about the film industry and music streaming and cannabis, our position on cannabis has been clear. We said, as soon as we get into government, we are going to ensure that there is a pardon for anybody who was convicted or imprisoned and they have a record for the use of small amounts of cannabis. Because there are a number of people who cannot get a US visa because they went to jail or they got a conviction for 1 joint or 2 joints. We think that is unfair and that will come to an end. But we also said that we are going to have a study on the use of cannabis for health purposes and for export purposes and for medicinal value. We're going to get the experts to look at that to see how we can get to a common solution on that, with a view further to decriminalize cannabis. But I want to tell you something. And I say that and I want you to listen to what I'm saying. You may recall that the people who they put the most pressure on for cannabis was the Rastafarians. They assumed that once you had locks, you smoked marijuana, even though the Rastas said that marijuana was for their religious purposes. They used to burn their farms and do all kinds of things to do that. We believe that these people have to benefit. If marijuana ever becomes a crop where we can make money, the Rastafarians must benefit from that. So cannabis cannot become something where the same people who jailed them and the same people who exploited them benefit from it. We think that is not right. In terms of the creative industries, we made a point about the youth economy. And all these things will come under the youth economy and there'll be consultation and discussion. And I just want to remind you, on the DSH issue, the Prime Minister said that the horse racing track would be a lost leader. Remember he said so? He said it will be a lost leader. So you have invested about $48 million of St. Lucian taxpayers' money to build a road, etc., for a lost leader. That he's on the record as saying that. In terms of the election, we are very aware that this government may try anything to stay in power. We are very aware of that. And I want to tell Marcia about what we found out is that there was a involvement of something that they call data targeting by a company which the United States, I think the Congress has almost banned, called Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica. And then, in a report that was tabled in the US Congress, Cambridge Analytica was signaled as having worked in the Caribbean countries, Trinidad and possibly St. Lucia. So we are very well aware that political education is important. But I want to follow what Carlton said. Each one of you must spread the message of truth. Each one of you must reason with your people in St. Lucia. Each one of you must understand and tell them that bluff and fluff and speaking nice words and saying things that sound good and making promises that you know will not happen, like 23 islands. These things will not happen. So you need to, each one of you, you need to do your duty. I don't want you to say, because somebody said it, and somebody said it well, or somebody said it with a particular accent, that it is right. I want you to look at it, examine it. I want you to fact check it. Check it. Check when a politician speaks, check the facts. So that is where the education will come. So my comrades, I really want to thank you. I think we had a wonderful afternoon. I want to thank the Master of Ceremonies. I want to thank Ms. Albert. I want to thank all of you. You've been a wonderful audience. If you invite me to come back, I will come back. And we need to discuss St. Lucia. St. Lucia really belongs to us. But as I told you, I want you to check the facts. The facts are there for you to check. Do not listen to talk or what you read from surrogates or what surrogates say. Check the facts and check the history. And I set myself up for scrutiny. I want you to check the facts on anything I said here this afternoon. And if you think I've said anything that is not true, I want you to identify it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And do have a wonderful evening. DJ Bravo. And before it's too late, I know it's early. I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year to yourself and your family. Thank you. And all those online, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your presence and thank you for all the questions. Thank you for the organizers. Thank you, everyone, and do have a pleasant evening.
Please don't leave. Give us a few minutes for Ms. Boncamper to do her closing remarks, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to first begin my statement by saying I want to thank God for taking us through this program as we continue to lean on Him for His understanding. What a great and satisfying day this has been. We St. Lucians in New York and the tri-state area who have made this country our home are pleased that we are yet again able to hear from the opposition leader and political leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party. We thank Honorable Philip J. Pierre for taking the time to be here. The business of our homeland remains important to us. We are grateful for the SLP preparedness to rescue St. Lucia and return good governance to our homeland. We thank you for recognizing the important role we have in the diaspora to secure St. Lucia for today and for generations to come. We believe you have given us leadership we can trust and a vision for the future which puts St. Lucians first. For that, we say thank you and ask for God's amazing providence on you and all those who serve you in the St. Lucia Labour Party. To the chairman of the SLP, Honorable Moses Musa Jean-Baptiste, we are pleased you are able to be here with us. We continue to be inspired by the SLP's platform, and it was a privilege to have you be part of this occasion. To the St. Lucia Labour Party General Secretary, Mr. Leo Clark, thank you for guiding the team. It was truly an honor to share in your vision for this event, and as a steering committee, we say thank you for your guidance. To the amazing team who worked to make this event a success, Jeremiah Hyacinth, Rowan Fellenor, Mistress Louis, Cletus Peter, Samantha Phillip, Sharon Fraser, Annette Dubois, Jacinta Gotnell, Leandra James, Magdalene Hyacinth, I apologize, and Bernard Haynes. We did great, team. I look forward to working with you. We will always be stronger together. To my family, I say thank you for the support and the forbearance. Our St. Lucia is a legacy we will not be denied. To friends of Crown Heights, thanks for the amazing venue. To our sound team, our social media Garfield, to the maintenance team, we say thank you.